go out and both. Now, if one says to his agent, go out and betroth so and so for me in such and such a place, and he went and betrothed her in a different place, she is not betrothed. If he said she is in such and such a place and he betrothed her in a different place, she is betrothed. If one betrothed a woman on condition that she is not under any vows and it is found that she is under vows, she is not betrothed. If he married her without making any stipulations and it's found that she is under vows, she may be divorced without a ketubah. If he betrothed her on the condition that she has no bodily defects and such defects were found upon her, she is not betrothed. If he married her without making any stipulations and bodily defects were found upon her, she may be divorced without a ketubah. And all bodily defects that disqualify Kohanim also disqualify women. If one betroths two women with the value of a putra, one woman with less than the value of a putra, well, even though he sent gifts afterwards, she is not betrothed because he sent them on the account of the original Kiddushin. The same applies to a minor who betrothed.
Okay.
Whenever I read this, whenever we do this, and it says, go out and betroth me a woman, I keep thinking of these Vikings, like
fetch me a wench.
Fetch me a wench, right? Wow.
They just say Isha Plonis, a specific woman. So he does actually have somebody in mind. Okay. Hamakadesh Isha Ubita. By the way, actually, as a serious thing, that you would not be able to tell somebody just to go find me a woman and just do Makadesh show for me. Any woman.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that.
Right.
Because it couldn't work because you can. And I suppose if he said to his shaliach, I don't care, whatever things, I just want a woman, and then he's actually given his authority to do that. I guess he could technically do that in a Torah. In the Rabbanan, you have to see your wife before you marry her. But I was just thinking that you can't just be say, oh, I've got a chap for him, I've got a Kiddushin for her. This guy, without his knowledge, you can't do, because ein chavin adam shelo b'fanav. You can't do something that also includes an obligation on a person unless he's authorized you to do it. So you can find a mitzvah for somebody. You can do something that's good on his behalf and without his permission, but you can't do that with you can't if it involves any kind of negative effect where now he has the financial obligation of this woman. That wouldn't work. Okay, that little irrelevancy is not really worth diving too deep into.
You said that Minotaur, you have to see your wife before you marry her. But I thought there was some Hasidim, very deep into the whole thing and everything, where they just make arrangements for the marriage and then they just meet under the chuppah.
Yeah. But this here is the first stage where they're doing the Kiddushin.
Mm-hmm.
So the Kiddushin happens a year before the chuppah.
So during between that time, I was saying that they didn't see each other at all.
Well, it's not that they weren't allowed to, but they certainly weren't living together.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Zion.
Hamakadesh Isha Ubita. So a man comes to a woman and her daughter, and he gives and he gives them the Kiddushin simultaneously. So again, how does that work? Let's say he's got he puts 2 Shabbat prutas into a basket, and he gives the basket to the woman and her daughter, and they both take the basket simultaneously. Okay, so that way the kinyan happens to both of them simultaneously, or as it'll turn out, it's going to give the Mishnah is going to give a whole list. So in order not to keep you in suspense, the Kiddushin doesn't hold. Why? Because you're not allowed to marry a woman and her daughter. And since if you'd married the woman first and then her daughter, then the woman's Kiddushin would work, but her daughter would not. Okay, the Kiddushin just doesn't take hold. It's an erva. Anytime you've got an erva prohibition, the Kiddushin isn't chal at all. But so if it happens simultaneously, then neither of them is Mekudeshes. Okay, similar relationships where if they took the Kiddushin simultaneously, it simply is ineffective on both of them. Or Isha v'achosa, two sisters, ka'achas, einan mekudeshes. Oh, sorry, this it's not a whole list. I was confused with something with a different Mishnah. Okay, well, and there was actually a case where there were 5 women who were out in the field. Ubahen shtei achayos, among them were 2 sisters. And a certain guy went and gathered a basket of figs. And the basket actually belonged to the women, just incidentally, because since we're mentioning a Masa Shahaya, let's get all the facts straight. The basket even belonged to the women. He borrowed it to collect the figs. And the figs had Kedusha Shvius. So he was gathering them for himself, which he's allowed to do, and he takes possession of them. So the figs do belong to him. And he comes up to this group of women and says, I haven't been married before, but I feel I'm ready for 5 wives. So he holds up the basket and he says, you're all betrothed to me with this basket. And they looked at each other and nodded. And one said, okay, I'll be a shlicha to collect it on behalf of all of us. And so she takes the basket. Okay. So what was the halacha over here? The 2 sisters who he attempted to marry simultaneously are not married at all. But the other 3 are all married to him with these figs, even though the figs were the only thing that he was mekaddish them with, not the basket, because the basket already belongs to one of them. And the figs were shvius, which you're not allowed to do commerce with, but you're not allowed to lechatchila, but you nonetheless it's effective to make a transaction. And so he gave them the figs as Kiddushin. They accepted. All of them are married to him except for the 2 sisters whose Kiddushin was called at the same time, who are completely unmarried. Okay. Amekadesh bechelko. Now here is a kohen who has received a chelik of kodshim meat. And he says, this is more than I can eat. What else could I do with this? Tossing it up and down. I feel like getting married. So he goes up to the girl he's had his eyes on and hands over the meat to her and says, Haref mekudeshesli. Right, with the kodshim meat. Ben kodshim kalim, ben kodshim kalim. It doesn't matter whether it's most holy like the chatas or kodshim kalim, like the gifts that he gets from the shlomim, right? So every time Israel brings a shlomim korban, he has to give him the chazeh. What's it? Okay, from Chulin he gets the zroa, the lechayim. Come on, it's too early in the morning for me. But the priestly gifts is the forearm, the foreleg, the lechayim v'ha keva. Yeah, so the keva is zroa lechayim. Okay, but in kodshim, he gets the gift of the chazeh v'shok. I think he gets different pieces of the korban. So that is eaten with the sanctity of less holy. As a gift, it's a gift to him. So you think, okay, so it's his. And a female is allowed to eat from it as well because it's less holy. For sure, we'd say no. Never would he be allowed to give it to a woman. But maybe the shlamim he could. Because the halacha is that the priestly gifts are not his property. They are Hashem's property, which Hashem has given to him to eat. Yeah. So he has permission to eat Hashem's property. but he cannot use it, and it's completely ineffective to use as Kiddushin. The Maaser Sheni. Now, what happens if somebody has Maaser Sheni money that they've brought to Yerushalayim? Okay, and now he sees a woman that he wants to marry, so he reaches into his pocket and pulls out some money and gives it to the woman as Kiddushin. Bein shogeg, bein mezid, lo kiddush divrei Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir says that Maaser Sheni money is not really your property. Doesn't matter whether you did it with shogeg or with mezid. It's money that again belongs to Hashem Ki'ilu, and you just have permission to spend it on food, and you have to eat it as food, but it's not tradable, and it's ineffective if you attempt to trade it. Says Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Meir, the shogeg lo kiddush, b'mezid kiddush. If he did it accidentally, he didn't realize that it was Maaser Sheni money that he was pulling out, then it didn't work because it was all in error. So the whole thing was a taos, and he gave her the wrong money, and therefore the Kiddushin's ineffective. However, if he pulled it out and knew that it was Maaser Sheni money, so it was an aveira, he wasn't allowed to do this, but nonetheless he did it, and he gave he gave her the money, then it is effective. And you see, for example, if a person takes Maaser Sheni money and he spends it on non-food items, right? Let's say he takes out his Maaser Sheni money and spends it on the hotel. Then what does he have to do? The money is spent, but now he has to take more chulin money out and replace the Maaser Sheni money whatever he spent. Okay, with the phrase is yochal konegdo, as we learned in the Masechus Maaser Sheni. Okay, so now the same thing goes with the woman. If he does a Kiddushin on the woman with his Maaser Sheni money, it works, but he's going to have to be ochel konegdo. That's like Rabbi Yehuda. Yeah. Now, what about hekdesh? So a person has put aside money. He's donated. Said this money is hekdesh, and I'm going to give it to the temple. And now he comes and does Kiddushin with this money. The Mezid Kiddush, the Shogeg Lo Kiddush divrei Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir says that if he did it deliberately, then he has violated the Kedusha of the Hekdesh, and it becomes chulin through his deliberate act. And since it becomes chulin through his deliberate act, the woman is mukadeshes. The Shogeg, if he didn't know, then it's not a Kiddushin. This is Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says, the shogeg kiddush, but mezid lo kiddush. He says no. If you made a mistake, that's with hekdesh. If you accidentally used hekdesh for your own purposes, then you committed me'ila, and now you've got to replace it. But nonetheless, the hekdesh goes to chulin. But mezid, if he does it deliberately, it doesn't lose its kedusha, and therefore it was not mekadesh. The halacha follows Rabbi Meir when it comes to Maaser Sheni, which means that under no circumstances is Maaser Sheni Makadeshes. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, when it comes to Hekdesh, which means that only if it is accidental is he Makadesh. Okay, Mishna Tes, HaMakadesh Ba'orla. This is the one with the long list of things that I got confused with in the first Mishnah. So there's a whole long list of things over here where you cannot do Kiddushin because everything in this list is Asur B'Hana, and which means it has no monetary value. Once something is Asur B'Hana, it has no monetary value. It's less than a Shava Pruta, and there's no Kiddushin. Okay, so Makadesh Ba'orla, fruit in its first 3 years. Kilaya Kerim, fruit that was the produce that was grown under a vineyard, or the grapes that became Kilaya Kerim. B'Shor and Iskal. An ox that's due to be stoned, and now that one actually is only this is even when it's been sentenced. Once it's been sentenced, immediately it's Asur B'Hana, and how do we know that even before it's been killed it's Asur B'Hana? Because the pasuk says Sakol Yisakel Ashar lo yochalis besoro. You may not eat its meat. Now, if the ox is going to be stoned, of course you're not allowed to eat its meat. It's not kosher. It's nevela. So why does the Torah have to tell us this? That this is a case where somebody came up to the Shor HaNiskal before it got stoned and shechted it. It's kosher. So there we have to say, no, you still can't eat the meat, even though it was shechted kosher, because it's Asur B'Hana. So that means it becomes Asur B'Hana from the moment that the din is passed. Okay. Egla Arufa. the calf that gets the back of its neck axed when a dead body is found outside the city. Okay, also Aser Bahana, Tzipori Matzorah, the birds of a Matzorah offering, the Sa'ar of a Nazir, the hair of a Nazir, Peter Chamor, the firstborn of a donkey, which this is the Peter Chamor if he refused to redeem it, because if he redeems it, then it becomes mutar. Okay, but there's that penalty if a person refuses to redeem the firstborn donkey, then he has to kill it. If somebody took a chulin animal and shechted it in the temple, it also becomes Aser Bahana. In all these cases, she's not Mekadeshes because all of these things are Aser Bahana. Mecharan. Now, what happens if all of these things here that were Aser Bahana, he went and sold them and now he's got money for them? So is that money also Aser Bahana? So he wasn't allowed to do it, but now he's got the money. He did a Kiddushin with their money, the Kadeshes. Right? The Isser Hana does not transfer to the money. So unlike with Shvius, for example, where you have Shvius produce and you sell it to somebody else, then the money also takes on Kedusha Shvius.
Right.
So not so with an Isser Hana. If somebody went the Avera and sold something that's Aser Bahana, the money actually does not become Aser Bahana. Okay, and that's our new Mishnahs for the day. Let's do Chazara. It's in Teskemo.
The essence of a get is that you are permitted to every man. Rabbi Yehuda says, and this which shall be to you from me is a writ of divorce, a letter of abandonment, and a bill of release to go to be married to any man you want. The essence of a document of emancipation is you are a free woman, and you are to yourself. The 3 gittin are void, but if she married, the offspring is legitimate. If he wrote it with his handwriting, but there are no witnesses on it, if there are witnesses on it, but there are no witnesses on it, if there are witnesses on it, but it has no date, if it has a date, but it only has 1 witness, these 3 gittin are void. But if she married, the offspring are legitimate. Elazar says there are no witnesses on it, but he gave it to the presence of witnesses. It's valid, and one collects from mortgage payments because witnesses sign on a document only for the sake of the general good. So the gittin is void, but if she married, the offspring are legitimate.
So in other words, it's void lechatchila.
Right.
But it's effective b'diavad.
Okay. All right. If 2 men sent 2 identical, I thought it'd be like a mamzer or something would come up over there. All right. If 2 men sent 2 identical gittin and they became mixed up and he gives both of them to this one and both of them to this one, therefore, if he lost one of them, the second is void. If 5 wrote as a group in a get, so-and-so is divorcing and so-and-so is divorcing so-and-so, and the witnesses are below, they are all valid. And that shall be given to each one for if the text was written for each one and the witnesses are below, that which the witnesses are read are valid. So they each have to sign underneath each one of those folds, right? They would have to sign underneath.
Yep, right.
In the case of 2 gittin whose texts are alongside,
that's for tomorrow.
That's it. Oh, okay.
Okay, Sota Zain Ches.
In what manner was the Torah passage of the king read? At the conclusion of the first Yom Tov day of Sukkot, and in the 8th year, at the conclusion of the 7th year, they make a wooden bima for him in the temple courtyard, and he sits upon it, and it's stated at the end of 7 years on the occasion of, etc. The attendant of the synagogue takes the Torah scroll and gives it to the head of the synagogue. The head of the synagogue gives it to the deputy Kohen, and the deputy Kohen gives it to the Kohen Gadol, and the Kohen Gadol gives it to the king. The king stands up to accept the scroll, but reads seated. King Agrippa stood up, accepted the scroll, and read while standing, and the sages praised him. When he reached the verse, "You may not install a foreigner as king over you," his eyes flowed with tears. They said to him, "Do not fear, Agrippa, you are our brother, you are our brother, you are our brother." He reached for the beginning of the Varam, and these are the words until the verse beginning here, then the passage beginning here, and it will come to pass if you will hearken, you shall surely tithe. When you have finished tithing, the biblical passage concerning the king, and the blessings and curses until they conclude the entire passage. Those blessings that the Kohen Gadol recites, the king recites, except that he inserts a blessing regarding the festivals in place of the blessing regarding the forgiveness of sin. The king anointed for battle, when he addressed the people, speaks in the holy tongue as it is said, and it shall be when he draws near the battle, the Kohen shall approach, and this refers to the Kohen anointed for battle, and shall approach the people in the holy tongue, and he shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, you draw near to battle to stay against your enemies. It is not against your brothers that you go. This will not be like Judah against Shimon, or like Shimon against Benjamin, who, when you fall into their hands, will have mercy upon you, as it is said. And the men who have been mentioned by name rose up and took the captives and clothed all that they were naked among them out of the spoils. And they dressed them and shod them and gave them to eat and to drink and anointed them and transported all the feeble among them on donkeys and brought them to Jericho, the city of palms, to their brothers, and they returned in Samaria. Rather, it is against your enemies that you go, who, if you fall into their hands, will have mercy upon you. Let not your heart be,
will not have mercy.
Will not have mercy upon you, mercy upon you, and let your heart become faint. Do not fear, nor become terrified. Let your heart not become faint. For the neighing of the horses and the flashing of the swords, do not fear. At the clanging of the shields and at the sight of the multitude of soldiers, nor become terrified. At the sound of trumpets, nor broken from the sound of shouting, for Hashem your God is he who goes with you. They come trusting in the victory of flesh and blood, but you come trusting in the victory of the Almighty. The Philistines came trusting in the victory of Goliath, and when what was his end? In the end, he fell by the sword, and they fell with him. The Ammonites came trusting to the victory of Shavak. What was his end? In the end, he fell by the sword, and they fell with him. But not so are you. For Hashem your God is he. Hashem your God is he who goes with you to fight for you. This refers to the camp with the ark in the midst. Okay.
One more. There were long Mishnayos, these ones.
And the officer shall speak to the people, saying, Who is the man who has built a new house and has dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house. It is all the same whether he builds a barn, stable, woodshed, or storehouse. It is all the same whether he builds, buys, inherits, or has given it to him, has been given to him as a gift. And who is the man who has planted a vineyard and not redeemed its fruit? It is all the same whether he plants a vineyard or plants 5 fruit trees, even if they are 5 species. It is all the same whether he plants layers or grafts, and it is all the same whether he buys, inherits, or has given as a gift. And who is the man who has betrothed a woman? It is all the same whether he betroths a virgin or a widow, or he has a sister-in-law who awaits his yibum, and even if he has heard in battle that his brother died, he returns home. All these in the battle ranks hear the words, and the Kohen and return home to supply water and food and to repair the roads.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Kesubah started line.
Okay. If he did not write a ketubah for her, a virgin collects 200 zuz and a widow 100, because it is a condition established by the court. If he assigned to her in writing a field worth 100 in lieu of the 200 zuz, and he did not write it to her, all the properties that I own are surety for your ketubah. And nevertheless, he is nevertheless liable, since it is a condition established by the court. If he did not write her for her, if you are captured, or I will ransom you and keep you for me as a wife, or in the case of a Cohen's wife, he will bring you back to your city. He is nevertheless liable, since it's a condition established by the court. If she was captured, he is obligated to ransom her. If he said, "Here are your bill of divorce," and let her ransom her, he is not allowed to do so. If she became ill, he is liable for her healing. If he said, "Here are her bill of divorce and her ketubah, let her heal herself," he is allowed to do so.
Okay. Shabbos.
We may attend to all the necessities of the deceased. We may anoint and rinse him, provided we do not move any of his limbs. And we may pull the pillow from under him and lay him in the sand, in order that his body keep. We may bind up the jaw, not that it should close, but that it should not open any further. So too with a beam that broke, we may support it with a bench or with a side piece of a bed, Not that it should be raised, but that it should not sag any further. We may not close the eyes of the dead on Shabbos, nor may we do so on a weekday at the moment of death. For whoever closes the eyes of a dying person at the moment of death is a murderer. If darkness overtakes a person on the road, he may give his purse to a Gentile. If no Gentile is with him, he may place it on the donkey. When he reaches the outermost courtyard, he may remove these objects that may be handled on Shabbos, and as for those that may not be opened on Sabbath, he may untie the ropes and allow the sacks to fall to themselves. We may untie bundles, right? We may untie bundles of straw before an animal, and we may scatter the tender cedar boughs, but not triple-bound bundles of straw. We may not shred neither fodder nor carob before an animal, whether it is lightweight or heavyweight. Rabbi Yehuda permits crushing carobs for a lightweight animal.
Okay.
Okay.
Because
Okay. Aleph. Well, if a higher grade of water,
yeah. So
Sorry?
up until now we've been talking about just rain puddles in the ground as the lowest level of mikveh.
if higher grade is water that seeps in that is not ceased seeping, it is tummy. If a tummy person drank from it and then a tahor person drank from it, he remains tahor. A tummy person drank from it and then drew one from it into a tahor vessel, it remains tahor. If a tahor person drank from it and then a loaf of truma bread into it, although they rinsed it, it remains tahor. If one withdrew from it with a tummy vessel and then a tahor person drank from it, it remains tahor. If one drew from it with a tummy vessel and then drew from it into a tahor vessel, it remains tahor. If one drew from it with a tummy vessel and then a loaf of truma fell into it, although he rinsed it, it remains tahor. If water fell into it and then a tahor person drank from it, it remains tahor. If a person drank from it, he remains tahor. If tummy water fell into it and then one drew from it in a tahor vessel, it remains tahor. If tahor water fell into it and then a loaf of truma fell into it, although he rinsed it, it remains tahor. It is fit for truma and is ritual rinsing of the hands.
Right, so this you can even pick up and do Natzilas Yadayim with.
Right.
Next level.
I'm sorry?
Next level, yeah.
Yeah. A higher grade is a mikveh that contains 40 saw, for in it one may immerse oneself, and in it one may immerse things. A higher grade is a spring that has little water, and that it was increased by a greater amount of drawn water. It is equal to a mikveh in that it purifies only with still water. And it is equal to a spring in that one may immerse things therein whatever amount. Yeah.
Last one.
And that was one more?
Yeah, there's one more Mishnah. Yeah.
Sorry. A high grade is spoiled spring water, for it purifies also when in motion. A higher grade is living water, for therein can be immersion of zavim, and therein there can be sprinkling from mitzorim, and it is fit to consecrate therefore from purification waters.
Okay. And
Melachos.
yes, good.
Good Gimel test. If he said, this act shall be an olah offering and became blemished, if he wishes, he may bring two for its money. These two oxen may be an olah offering, and they may become blemished. But he who wishes may bring one with their money, and Rebbe prohibits it. This ram shall be an olah offering that became blemished, and if he wishes, he may bring a lamb with the money. This lamb shall be an olah offering, and it became blemished, and if he wishes, he may bring a man with his money, and a ram with his money, and Rebbe prohibits this. If one says, one of my lambs shall be consecrated, or one of my oxen shall be consecrated, if he had two, the larger one is consecrated. If he had five, the middle one is the one that is consecrated.
Did you say five?
If he said, I specify, but I do not know which.
I think we have three. You said five, and I think my Mishnah says three.
You're right. If he had two, the larger of them is consecrated. If he had three, the middle one of them is consecrated. If he said, I specify, but I do not know which I specified, and he said, my father told me, but I do not know which, the largest of them is consecrated. If one said, I take upon myself to bring an olah offering, he must bring it in the holy temple, and he offered it in the temple of Kanya, which has not fulfilled his obligation. He has not fulfilled his obligation. Then I shall offer in the temple of Kanya, he should offer it on the temple, in the holy temple. He has fulfilled his obligation. And Reb Shimon says this is not an Ola offering. If one said, I am a Nazir, he must shave in the holy temple and must bring it to the holy temple of Kanos. He has not fulfilled his obligation, then I shall shave in the temple of Kanos. He should shave.
You're putting all the full stops in the wrong places. It's not making sense.
Okay, let me do it again.
If he says he's a Nazir, then he must shave in the temple, and if he shaved in the temple of Chonyo, he's not Yotze. If he does it al manas that he's going to shave in the temple of Chonyo, he still must shave in the Beis HaMikdash. But if he did shave in the temple of Chonyo, then he's Yotze. Okay, Rabbi Shimon says this is not called a Nazir.
The Kohanim who served in the temple of Chonyo may not serve in the holy temple in Yerushalayim, and certainly if they served another thing, as it is stated, but the Kohanim of the Bama places would not be allowed to come up to the altar of Hashem in Yerushalayim. However, they ate matzah among their brothers. They are like those who are blemished, and they share and eat, but they do not offer. It is said regarding the Ola, Anima Ola, a fire offering, a pleasing aroma, regarding the bird Ola, a fire offering, a pleasant aroma, and regarding the minka offering, a fire offering, a pleasant aroma. This teaches that there's no difference between the one who offers much and the one who offers little, as long as he directs his mind to heaven.
Okay, Hadron Allah, and tomorrow we start Chulin.
Okay, tomorrow.
I gotta run. Have a great day.
Have a great day. So tomorrow I will be ready for you at whatever time.
About 7:45ish.
7:45. Okay.
Bye.